Hello. Hello, how is everyone? My name is Gizem. Nice to see you all here. I'm seeing some familiar names. Welcome back. Hi, hello. Are you guys feeling all right? If you ask me, I'm very good. I'm very energetic today. Today we will have our opinion essay writing session, which is on task 2, writing task 2. As you know, you will have 2 tasks on IELTS writing, and this is on the second part, so the second task. Today we will talk about opinion essays, and let's start our class. If you have any questions before we start, you can go ahead and ask them right now. To ask any questions to me, you can use the chat box, or you can just unmute yourself, raise your hand, and unmute yourself. Both are fine. Any questions before we start? And this session is recorded, and we upload all our classes to our YouTube channel. If you type Clasital on YouTube, you will get our webpage, and you can access our classes there. So anything you see here or here will be also on our YouTube channel. You can watch that from there too. Any questions before we start? If not, as I've said, we will look at opinion essays today, and this is on task 2. And this is the public version of the band descriptors that IELTS publishes. As you can see, there are 4 criteria. So the first one is task response. The second one is coherence and cohesion. The third one is lexical resource, which is just a fancy way of saying vocabulary. And the last one is grammatical range and accuracy. And as you can see, there are a lot of details as to which gets what band, which band. For example, if you fully address all parts of the task and present a fully developed position in answer to the question with relevant, fully extended, and well-supported ideas, you will get a band 9 from task response, and so and so. So they all have like really detailed things, criteria. And if you get, for example, all band 9s from all these 4 criteria, you will get a band 9 from writing, basically. Blessed Sunday. Thank you. You too. I'm seeing the chat box too. Anything you write in there. And if you don't attend, you will get a band 0. All right. So let's talk about these 4 criteria in detail right now. So in task achievement, they ask for you to answer the question, understand the question type correctly. As I've said, we will look at opinion essays today, opinion questions. And in this part, it's important to acknowledge that the question we're tackling with is an opinion essay question. That's why we need to give our opinion, our position very clearly. So as soon as the examiner reads our essay, he or she needs to understand what position we're taking, because that needs to be clear for task achievement to get a good task achievement score. And we also need to use the correct essay structure, which is 1 introduction paragraph, 2 body paragraphs where we give our information, our opinion, and support it with examples and some explanations. And the last thing we have to do is to write a conclusion. So our essay needs to have 4 paragraphs. The first paragraph has to be the introduction. The 2 paragraphs later on needs to be body paragraphs, and the last one should be conclusion. And we need to write at least 250 words to get a good grade in task achievement, but we should, I think, write around 300 words, but we should not really exceed 350 words. There is no upper word limit in IELTS writing, but it's important that you kind of do not write too long, because then you won't be able to correct your mistakes and review your essay after you've written it. And correcting your mistakes is way more important than writing a really, really long essay. So as long as your essay is more than 250 words, you're good. You don't need to write that much, basically. So this was task achievement. The second criteria that we will look today is coherence and cohesion, which is basically our planning of the essay. So if you plan our essay beforehand, and if we plan it as a whole, and if we support our ideas with examples and evidences, and if we're consistent throughout our essay, we will get a good band score in coherence and cohesion, basically. So, for example, if the question asks you, let's say, do you like red? And if you say, yes, I like red, but then change that answer later on to blue, let's say, then you won't be consistent, right? You will have two different favorite colors, and that's not consistent. So, to get a good grade in coherence and cohesion, you not only need to give like really good examples and details, but you also need to be consistent while providing your ideas. And the third criteria is lexical resource. As we've said, this is just a fancy way of saying vocabulary. And to get a good band score in this part, you need to use a wide range of vocabulary. So you need to show the examiner that you know a lot of academic, like different words, like various words, and that you can use them correctly. Of course, we're all human. We can make some rare minor errors. They're all right, but we need to at least show the examiner that we know these words and we know how to use them, but we might sometimes make mistakes. And to get a good grade in this band, in lexical resources, you need to use synonyms where possible. So, for example, if you write important at first, you should write significant or vital or crucial later on, so that you can show the examiner again that you know all these words, these academic words, and that you can use them. So, apart from using synonyms, we also need to paraphrase the sentence. So, we try to rewrite the sentence in our own words or in our own grammatical structures. So, for example, if the question says, let's say, global warming has many effects, we can say there are a lot of effects that global warming causes. So, what did we do there? We changed the grammatical structure of the sentence without changing the exact words. So, we didn't change the words, but we changed the grammatical structure, which is called paraphrasing. And this shows the examiner that we know how to say something more academically, more differently than what we see. So basically, if you cannot find any direct synonyms, or if they don't come up to your mind that at that second, you can just rewrite the sentence in a different grammatical structure, basically. And while writing your essay, to get a good score in lexical resources, you need to try to use some uncommon words related to the subject. So, for example, again, if they ask what are the effects of global warming, and what you can do instead of writing effects, you can write impacts or influences or leads to some different grammatical structures that are uncommon. Sorry, some different vocabularies, words that are uncommon, so that again the examiner knows that you know these words and you can use them correctly. And the last criteria we will talk about today is grammatical range and accuracy, which means that you need to write both simple and really complex and compound sentences. So, this again is to show the examiner that you can use all these different grammatical structures accurately in your essay. And to use compound sentences, you can write an idea and add to that idea saying and, for, yet, but, so, or nor. These are compound sentences. These are how you form compound sentences. And for complex sentences, we will talk about that in a second using a table. And you also need to show the examiner that you can use the passive voice, so passive sentences. So, for example, instead of saying, uh, let's say, this subject affected me very much, you can say, I'm affected by this subject using a passive voice. And you need to also show the examiner that you know how to form question sentences too, which are basically just questions. And you need to also use conditional sentences, which are formed with modal verbs and if clauses. So let's talk about those complex sentences right now. Complex sentences are basically the sentences that we write using different linking words and different structures. So, for example, after, although, as, because, before, even if, even though, these are all linking words. They're different linking words. And we need to use them to show the examiner again that we can use complex sentences. But there are also other ways of writing complex sentences such as with relative clauses and noun clauses, which are really, really important because then again, they will show the examiner that you know how to use English, like really academic English in your essay. And those relative clauses and noun clauses can be used with things like this. So, whereas, who, while, whether, where, when, why, and stuff like that. Who, whom, which. All of them basically help us to form relative clauses and noun clauses. And if you feel like you're not really good at those different grammatical structures, so let's say relative, noun clause, if clause, modal verbs, or passive voices, I really encourage you to kind of look them up and try to form sentences of your own. And then later on you can incorporate those newly learned grammatical structures in your essay. And if you try that, if you practice that, you will definitely get better. So if you don't know any of these linking words or grammatical structures, I would highly suggest you try to use them, try to learn them, to write them in your essay later on. So basically, this was the criteria, the band descriptors that IELTS looks at while looking at your essay. Any questions on this, on band scores, on descriptors, or any of the criterias, any of the four criterias that we have talked about? To ask me a question, again, you can use the chat box or you can just raise your hand and ask your question. Both are fine. If there are no questions, we will continue to our next page, talk about opinion essays. Everything is clear? Good. All right, let's move on then. Crystal clear, perfect. So, to focus on opinion essays, what we need to do in this part, basically in the second task of IELTS writing, we need to spend around 40 minutes on our writing task 2. For the writing part in IELTS in general, we get 60 minutes to write 2 essays. The first one is task 1, which we need to spend around 20 minutes for. And the second one is task 2, for which we will need to spend around 40 minutes. Because this task 2, affects your score more than task 1. So we will spend more time on writing this one. And in opinion essays, we will usually get like a. Sorry, Ansa, yes, you've raised your hand.
Yes, can you please tell some points which are necessary for getting band 7? Because in my writing, usually I get 6, once I get 6, and once I get 6.5. I want 7 or 7 plus in my IELTS writing. So if you can explain how can I improve my band?
Sure, let's talk about that briefly. But for future references, you can also use this like public version of band descriptors, which you can find on Google, really like with a quick look. But for band 7, basically, what you need to do is to address all parts of the task, present a clear position throughout your response, present, extend, and support your ideas, but there may be a tendency to overgeneralize and or supporting ideas may lack focus. So basically, this is for task response. And for coherence and cohesion, your ideas should be logical. You can make some mistakes in terms of uh, more or writing more or less on a topic, but so this says there may be some under or overuses. But you need to overall present a clear central topic, a clear opinion. And for lexical resources, you need to have like a sufficient range of vocabulary knowledge. So you need to be able to paraphrase and use synonyms, basically. And you need to also show the examiner that you know some like one or two words that are really uncommon. And you can make some mistakes, so you may produce occasional errors in word choice, spelling, and or word formation, but they should not affect the meaning. So the examiner needs to still be able to understand what you're trying to say. You just made a few errors. And for grammatical range and accuracy, you need to use a wide variety of complex structures, produce frequent error-free sentences, and you need to have good control of grammar and punctuation, but may make a few errors. So basically, for band 7, for those of you who want to get a band 7, you need to do like an overall excellent job. like mistake-free almost, but you can make some errors in all parts of the criterias. They just shouldn't affect the meaning. So the examiner should still need to understand you. And overall, you need to show the examiner again you know some very like various words and different grammatical structures, basically. Can we get this in PDF? Yes, you can also type like writing test 2 band descriptors public version on Google, and you will see this like the exact same thing on Google, because this is public version. We've just taken out of Google as well. Any other questions? Or was that clear? Was that enough, Ansa?
Yes.
All right. All right, if it's clear, we will also have like an example essay together. We will read them and kind of write it together. I think that will also help you decide what a good essay or a band 7 essay looks like. So maybe at the end of the class we can talk about this again if something's not clear. All right. So basically, in opinion essays, again to come up with that, we will have like an information sentence. Basically, for this one, we have, let's say, machine translation, MT, is slower and less accurate than human translation, and there is no immediate or predictable likelihood of machines taking over this role from humans. So basically, what we learn here is that machine translation is slower than human translation, and it's not as accurate. So it cannot take this role away from humans. So still, translation is like a human job, this information sentence tells us, right? And the question always comes up like this. So we have like an information sentence where we find out the necessary details on this topic. And then the question asks if we agree or disagree with this thing. And we need to write at least 250 words, as we have already talked about. So, what we need to do for the introduction paragraph is to first paraphrase this sentence or these sentences, however much you're given. Usually, you're given one sentence only, but sometimes you're also given 2 or 3 sentences. What you need to do in the introduction paragraph is to just paraphrase that sentence or those sentences, and then we will state our opinion. So we will say if we agree or disagree. So ideally, your introduction should be around maybe 2 to 3 sentences, and you don't have to write more than that. Now, let's write an introduction together. So for this one, as we have said, we need to paraphrase that sentence, that topic sentence. And while doing that, we need to kind of use the synonyms of the words where we can. And if we cannot find any synonyms, we need to just paraphrase it in different grammatical structures. I want you to now take a second and think about what else we could have written instead of this sentence or these 2 sentences. Can you form like a paraphrased version of this on your mind, or you can use the chat box too? Or you can, again, raise your hand and tell me what your paraphrased version is. We will write it together. Basically, we will come up with an introduction together. I'm seeing on the chat a thing called previous one. I don't know what you mean by that. Was that the like band descriptors? Can we use computing instead of MT? So basically, MT machine translation is kind of like a thing that we cannot change, because it's kind of like the name of something in particular. So, for example, we cannot say something else instead of my name, right? So it's something like that. So I think we should keep it the same, but you can say, you can describe it rather than naming it. So you can say translation done by a machine or translation done by a computer. But we cannot just say computing and think that we have the exact same meaning. But you can say, of course, translation done by a machine or translation done by a computer, which are basically the same thing as this. All right. So I think we've decided that we're going to keep the machine translation part, or we can also say translation done by a machine. What about slower or less accurate? What can we use instead of those? Slower and less accurate than human translation. So maybe just paraphrase the first sentence right now. Machine translation is slower and less accurate than human translation. So we can turn it the other way around, right? So basically, this sentence subject is machine translation. It compares to human translation. So we can say, oh, there's a sentence on the chat box. Let's read that. Translations done by the machines are not comparable with the human efficiency, as they are not as fast as human beings. I think that's a perfect translation. Paraphrased version. I really like that one. I said good job on that. And there's another paraphrased version. Thank you for those. I'm really happy. So the other one is nowadays human translation is done, I think, by new technologies. I must say MT is much more accurate than translation of human. I'm completely in opposed of this treatise. All right. So there are a few grammatical mistakes there, and there are a few misspelled words, but it's all right. Abby, I think that's again really good introduction, but I would say yes, typo. I know it happens on when we're taking the computer-based exam. So that's why I think it's really important to kind of leave the time to review our essay and read it and correct any mistakes or typos that we make. But I would suggest you, Abby, and I know that you can see the chat box too. Like all of you, I would suggest you to kind of paraphrase the sentence first and then give your opinion. So basically, uh, I think you should add machine translation is set to be slower, let's say, or something like that, like a paraphrased version. And then you can like give your opinion like this, saying, I must say something, something. Yes, Abby, yes, of course, you can speak.
Am I audible? Yeah,
Um,
ma'am, just hello.
yeah, I can hear you, but it's really like not so loud. All right.
Now it's perfect or not? Now it's clear.
It's really
Hello.
hard for me to hear you. I'm so sorry.
Wait, ma'am.
I'll come back
Hello.
to you then. Yeah, all right. Hi.
Yeah, now it's fine. Now?
Um, it's not changed that much, but I think I can understand. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, ma'am. I'm just saying. You said na that firstly just paraphrase the sentence. So
Yes.
I did not like. I must say, machine translation is much more accurate than translation of human. So after then I
Mhm.
yeah, this is the paraphrase, but I did in a small sentence, like a small way. Na?
I understand. Um, Let me read your sentence again. Now,
Sure,
this is
sure.
done by new technologies. I must say, much more accurate. So basically, what you've done here in your sentence is to kind of change it, saying that machine translation is more accurate than human translation. So that's your opinion. But that's not what this sentence says. So basically, you need to, again, give that same meaning in a paraphrased version and give your opinion later on. So saying, so for example, machine translation is less accurate, but it is said, you can say, it is said machine translation is less accurate, but I think it's more accurate, as you have written.
And
And
I have to follow this sentence
yeah, yeah,
followed by this.
yeah.
Okay, now I got it.
No worries, no
Thank you.
worries. Um, so there's also another answer. Let's read that too. I missed some points that you tell about what should we do for writing task 2. That's why I asked for can I get the PDF. Oh, not bent descriptors you meant. Uh, yeah, okay. So for writing task 2, you need to write 250 words and you need to write that in 40 minutes. Other than that, we only talked about bent descriptors basically. And this doesn't come up in PDF form, but I will ask other teachers if we can provide one for you. But other than that, you can also find the video of this session because this session is recorded. You can find this video on YouTube, our YouTube channel. So if you write Clasital on YouTube, you can find this video, date in this time. And there's also another answer. Let's read that too, if that's clear for you. Humans are more efficient and accurate than computing machines when it comes to translations. Yes, I think that's really good too, but there's a few grammatical mistakes, so we need to write humans are more efficient instead of human are, and accurate than computing machines when it comes to translations. What I planned on writing, like paraphrasing this, was kind of similar to yours. So let's write one together too. So I will write one. When compared, we can say, and I'm like stealing all your answers right now, like making it all one. So thank you all for your answers. I think those were all really good paraphrased versions. And if you do something like that in IELTS essay in your introduction, you will get fine. You will be fine. You will get a really good band score. So we can also say, I'm trying to write something both similar and really different from yours to show you that like different methods of paraphrasing a sentence because there's not one correct version. So we can say, when compared, human translators, we can say do a better job in translating a written piece of work, both in terms of its accuracy, and I couldn't spell it, accuracy, and all right, I'm just going to leave it at that, accuracy and speed, we can say. So we can write that sentence like this too, which are all fine. Yours were good too. I just want you to now tell me if there are anything that you do not understand in this sentence in my paraphrased version. As I've said, I want to repeat that again. There is no wrong way of doing this, basically. Paraphrased versions are just like really personal. You can paraphrase it however you want. But is there anything you don't understand in this sentence? So what we did basically is to reverse the sentence saying human translators. So human translators instead of human translation. Now it came to me. And do a better job. So they are better in translating. So in translation, a written piece of work, so something, right? Both in terms of accuracy, so it's more accurate, and it's better at speed, so it's faster instead of slower. So we changed it to another way. Anything you want to ask? All right, if not, we can also add the second sentence to this sentence, but we can also write like two different sentences. So basically, we can add this, there is no immediate or predictable likelihood of machine taking over this role from humans to this sentence, or we can write it in a separate sentence. Both are fine. I want you to take a second to kind of try to paraphrase that sentence too. And there's also a question in the chat box. Let's read that. Academic vocabulary is important in writing tasks. Yes, definitely. In IELTS writing, academic vocabulary, academic grammatical structures are really, really, really important. So that's why we're trying to change the grammatical structures and also trying to use different words, different synonyms, and like really those not common, uncommon words. Academic vocabulary is basically really, really important. Let's paraphrase the second one then, the second sentence. So we can say, moreover, or what's more, to indicate that we're giving another information. We can say, moreover, it does not seem likely, or we can just say it's not likely. Let's write that. It's not likely for the machines, or the machine translation. Let's write machine translation, just so we use that too. It's not likely for the machine translation, or MT, to take over this position, let's say. And it's also clear from whom machine translation cannot take this position over, right? So we don't have to repeat from humans. But if we want, we can also write it too, from humans or human translators. But we can also do, and there's also another, yes, I think that's a really good sentence too. There's also another paraphrased version on the chat box. Let's read that. Also, there are remote chances of computing machines replacing this responsibility from humans. Definitely, I think that's a really good paraphrased version too. But I want to give you another academic structure, which are the former and the latter. So basically, the former means what we have said previously, and the latter is the second thing that we have mentioned. So basically, instead of saying from humans again and again, instead of repeating that, since we have written human translators first and machines in the second, we can just say from the former. Instead of saying humans or human translators, we can just write from the former, which will mean the same thing because the former here refers to the first thing that we have said. So refers to the first thing that you have said. And the latter refers to the second thing that you have said. Second thing that you have said. I find this really convenient in my academic writing, because in academic writing, we shouldn't repeat something that we've said like again and again. What we need to do instead is to paraphrase or use synonyms where possible. And the former and the latter are really useful in doing that because they help us not repeat the same thing again and again. So if you haven't known this, or if you didn't know this previously, I would really suggest you to try to incorporate these in your writing too. Maybe take notes of it. I think that would be really good for you. Is there anything not clear on the use of former and the latter? If not, we will look at different things that we could have done instead of these. All right, seems like everything is okay. Good. So what could we use instead of such as? So basically here we have this, sorry, we don't have it here. What can we use instead of such as? So such as basically means that we're giving an example to something that we've said previously. What can we use instead of it? If it's an example, basically we can use all three. For example, for instance, and like, because they all provide examples to us, we can say all of them. But I wouldn't suggest you to choose like, because like is not that academic and doesn't always mean the same thing as such as. So I would suggest you to use for example and for instance. Yes, likely cannot be used in the same way as this one, but if you use it in a different grammatical structure, then yes, you can use likely too. But likely also means something is likely to happen. So basically, it doesn't give the same meaning as these three, so as examples. Instead, you can write likewise, but that means we're giving an example that is similar to that. So basically, likely and likewise, they don't kind of mean the exact same thing. They can give similar meanings, but they're not the exact same thing. So I wouldn't use that. Yes, likely is for chances of happening, definitely. So I wouldn't kind of use that, try to use that in the same meaning as such as. What about words you can use to express a contrast? So a contrast basically means that something is in contradiction to something else. So for example, I can say, I'm very energetic, but my husband is not that energetic. So we're different. We show contrast. Yes, we can use on the other hand. What else? So in contrast, they basically mean the same, right? And we can use vice versa too, but I wouldn't suggest that. I wouldn't suggest using vice versa. I don't think it's really that academic, basically. All of them, yes, all of them is the correct answer. We can use although, however, in contrast, on the other hand, basically all of them to show a contrast. What about conjunctions we can use to link sentences? Again, the answer is all of them. We can use all these to link two sentences, but make sure that you're using whereas while showing a contrast. So basically, whereas also gives a contrast, although gives a contrast too, while can give a contrast, but it doesn't have to. But the other two, they're showing a contrast, so you need to write them uh, in a sentence which shows contradictory ideas. There's also a question on the chat box. Let's check that rather than can be used. So I think you're asking, can we use rather than to show a contrast? Yes, we can, but rather than kind of includes a preference. So basically, I can say, I would prefer to write academically rather than generally, like, or in a daily fashion. So rather than basically means we're choosing something over something else. Yeah, but you can use it if the circumstances are right. Other than that, I think these are better. Why? Because they get two different sentences, which at the end makes you write more sentences, more words, so you can exceed that word limit, that 250 word limit, I think. All right, if there are no questions, any other questions, let's quickly move on to our opinion essay. So basically, our question, let's remember the question first. Yes, I was going to do that too, Abby. So the question is, machine translation is slower, less accurate than human translation, and there is no immediate or predictable likelihood of machines taking over this role from humans. And we need to either agree or disagree to this statement. So we need to basically choose a position. We can agree or disagree. And some of you have already said that they disagree, and some of you, I think, show that they're agreeing with this statement. We need to choose that position. We need to choose our position, and we need to write an essay on that position consistently. Now, let's read our example essay together. And as you can see, we have some blanks in this essay, which we need to fill together. You have to snap that question. Did you already snap it? Have you done it or done? All right, perfect. So let's read this and complete this together. As we're reading, I want you to kind of write what we can use in the first blank. Think about that and write it, or you can raise your hand. All are fine. Let's start. So, this is our introduction. It is true that there have been great advances in technology over the last 40 years. We will say something, and then we will say the use of mobile phones and email communication is common these days. What do you think we can write here? So one answer is in order to. What is in order to? What does it mean? And how do we use it in a sentence? There are also other examples. There's one saying on, for example. I don't think we have something called on, for example. You can choose it from here. But we have, for example, or for instance. I think you're meaning some of them. And Priyanka says it's true. So yes, we can use for example or for instance. So basically, we're giving. It's true that there have been great advances in technology, so technology has advanced. And we say the use of mobile phones and email communication as examples to those advances, right? So we can say, for example, or for instance, because they both mean the same thing. We cannot use in order to, because in order to kind of says that we're aiming something. So for example, we can say, in order to pass the exam, the IELTS exam, I have studied a lot. And in order to needs to get a verb after it in the first form, verb one. So we can say in order to pass, but we cannot say in order to the use of. We can say in order to use, but that's kind of a different thing, right? All right, let's move on to the second blank. So something, we will say, machines that translate from one language to another are still in their early stages. So machines that translate from one language to another, which is our subject. So those machines translate something to another, and they're still in their early stages. So they didn't start that long ago. Some of you said on the contrary. One of you said, of course. What is the first answer? So the first answer is for instance or for example. We can use both of them, either of them, because they mean the same thing. What about the second one? Some of you say for this reason, for the reason. We can say for these reasons. However, there are a lot of opinions on that one. So basically, we were talking about something positive, right? We were saying that, yeah, technology is great. We're using mobile phones and email communication, which are all, again, really good. There is nothing that's not positive here, right? They're all positive developments, advancements. But I think this sentence kind of um, does not add to that positiveness. It says it's in early stages. So this means that it's not that perfect. So machines do not translate those sentences or those written pieces of work really good. So we're trying to say something that's going to contradict that idea, right? So, yes, for those of you who said, however, you got it right, we need to say, however, machines that translate one language to another are still in their early stages. And I think this is really important because this is also where you get your points from. So basically, if you use your linking words correctly, you will get a better grade. So to use those linking words correctly, you need to also kind of be aware of what you're writing or reading, basically. And yes, all right, let's move on. So something that a machine could never do as good a job as human, something when it comes to interpreting what people are saying. I think this is a rather hard one, but let's go. Anna says, it seems to me for the third one. So can we say, it seems to me that a machine could never do as good a job as a human? Do you agree with Anna? I think I agree with her because this is where yes, it's true. Yes, you're agreeing with her. I agree with her too. So this is where we're giving like kind of our opinion, where we're like peeking at our opinion, saying it seems to me that a machine could never do as good a job as a human. So we're stating our opinion. And what is the fourth one? Sorry, when it comes to interpreting what people are saying. When it comes to. Mm, we can say, for instance, I think too. We can also say especially. Yes, especially, for instance, I think both are fine. This is also going to change. Our answers are going to change because we will see a lot of other blanks and we might kind of change our answers later on. So for example, if we choose similarly here or especially or for instance, we might then think another blank gets for instance because it looks better. Then we can change our answers, but for now I think for instance especially are both fine. But I would choose especially because what we're doing here is that we're saying something that kind of supports that idea rather than giving an example, right? So we're saying, especially when it comes to this. So we're giving an example. That's why it's not that wrong. But I think especially is better because we're kind of saying like a supporting idea, right? I think let's choose especially here. By the way, I forgot to write our answers. So it's, for example, what did we say here? However, we said, it seems to me, and we said especially. All right, let's move on to the next one. So we should say something. Machines can translate statements such as, where is the bank? But even simple statements are not always straightforward. Something, the meaning depends on more than just words. So yes, I think it's better to use for instance or of course here. So we can say, for instance, machines can translate statements such as, where is the bank? So I think it's pretty clear. We're giving an example to the thing that we have said. But even simple statements are not straightforward. The meaning depends on more than just words. What should we write here? What should we say? Because, I think because is good here. Yes, definitely. Some of you agree. So even simple statements are not always straightforward because the meaning depends on more than just words. So it gives like an explanation again. It gives the reason why simple statements are not always straightforward. So since we're giving that reason, since we're explaining that reason, I think because is a really good linking word here. All right, let's move on. So we should say something, the word bank, has a number of different meanings in English. And no, it's not in order to, because in order to, again, gets a verb after it, not a noun. And since this sentence starts with the word, we cannot write in order to, because the word is not a noun. Sorry, is not a verb, it's a noun. So we cannot use in order to. We say for these reasons, or for example, I think we have like kind of cannot say for instance or for example anymore because we've already used both of them. But let's read that. So, but we can use for example or for instance more than twice too, of course. The word bank has different meanings. So I think, yes, we can use for instance, because we're giving an example to the meanings, the words that have more than one meaning, basically. Um, some of you said for these reasons. I don't think we can use for these reasons here. Do you know why? Yes, for instance is already used, but we can use one more than once because as we've said, we can sometimes add something to a blank, but then think it's better in another sentence. For example, I think here, for instance, is better to use than here or here. And we don't have to use them, that's why, once. But let's come back to for these reasons, because for these reasons, I don't think can be used here. Here they're referring bank has different meanings. Yes. So, why do you think we cannot use for these reasons? I'm asking all of you. So basically, the word bank does not have different meanings because some meanings have more than one word. Sorry, more than one meaning. Right? So, for example, I can say, I have studied a lot and I have learned a lot of different words, different academic words in English. For these reasons, I have passed the exam, which means that for the reasons that I have mentioned in my previous sentence, so I have studied a lot and I have learned new vocabulary, I passed the exam. So there's a cause-effect relationship there, right? But there's not a cause-effect relationship in between these two sentences. So we cannot say for these reasons here. That's a really commonly made mistake. So that's why I'm kind of like focusing on that a little bit. Is that clear for these reasons? Is that clear why we cannot use for these reasons here? If not, I will kind of like explain it again. No? All right. So basically, for this reason or for these reasons mean that we're explaining a cause and effect relationship. So basically, we can say, let's give another example. Um, What else? So we can say, I haven't eaten anything today. So we haven't eaten anything. So we're hungry. So the first sentence that we form, so we haven't eaten anything, causes the second sentence to happen. That's why we're hungry, right? So in that sentence, while linking those two sentences, we can use for these reasons. Yes, we can say, for this reason, I'm starving. But there is not a cause-effect relationship in these two sentences. That's why we cannot use them. So for example, the meaning depends on more than just words, yes, but that's not the reason why the word bank has different meanings. Is that kind of clear? If not, let's get back to it afterwards. So, how does translating machine know which meaning to take? And then we'll go on to explaining, saying something understand what people are saying. You need to take into account the relationship between the speakers and their situation. And yes, this is in order to, because there is a verb after it, right? To understand. In order to understand, yes, that's true. So this means that to understand. So this is our goal. Our goal is to understand what people are saying. And to do that, we need to take into account the relationship between the speakers and their situation. A machine cannot tell the difference between the English expression look out, meaning be careful, and look out, meaning put your head out of the window. You need a human being to interpret that situation. So basically, this paragraph argues that the machine cannot do as a good job as a human because a machine cannot interpret a situation. And it explains that, this paragraph explains that idea, saying that when we choose the word look out, when we choose the expression look out, the machine cannot understand that context, but a human can. So a human can understand the difference between two expressions, whereas a machine will just take it directly, right? So this paragraph supports that idea as such. Let's move on to the second point. So it says, something with written language, it's difficult for a machine to know how to translate accurately. So let's look at our options again. Something with written language. Yes, similarly with written language. It's difficult for a machine to know how to translate accurately. Something we rarely translate every word. So a machine cannot know how to translate accurately, something we rarely translate every word. What do you think can be? All right, do you want to skip that? Oh, you say of course or because. All right, I think we can use of course or because, both are fine. Let's choose that after maybe. So we should say something we try to take into consideration how the idea would be expressed in the other language. I think, what do you think here? Yes, I think of course is a better option here. Of course, we try to take into consideration how the idea would be expressed in the other language. This is hard to do. Something, every language has its own way of doing and saying things. So this is hard to do. Every language has its own way of doing and saying things. I think the second sentence explains the reason why it is hard to do. So yes, I think it gets because. Yes. And you said because here too, or of course. I think both could be good options. And the last paragraph, we should say, I feel that it's most unlikely that machines will take the place of humans in the field of translating and interpreting. So we've paraphrased that sentence, our thesis statement, our opinion. And we said, I feel that it's most unlikely, so it cannot happen, that machines will take the place of humans. What do you think will be? in this blank. Thus, I think thus is a really, really good option here, but it's not included in the options. What is synonyms to for these reasons? Sorry, I gave the answer. So basically, for these reasons is a synonym of thus. And it's also a synonym of hence, and that's why. And we can use all of them here. So we can say for these reasons, or we can say thus, or we can say hence, or we can just say that's why, we can say therefore. They're all correct, basically. I'm going to show you all of them. So we can say for these reasons, we can say thus, hence, that's why, or therefore. All of them are correct, basically. But we cannot say on the contrary. I don't think so. Because on the contrary means that we're contrasting two different opinions. And this is not what we're doing in this sentence. In this sentence, we're kind of repeating what we have already said in the thesis statement. That's why we cannot say on the contrary. But we can say, for the reasons that we have explained, uh, machines will not take over, basically. All right, good. Glad that is clear. And our last sentence is, if machines ever learn to think, perhaps then they will be in a position to take on this role. So if the machines can learn to think, then maybe they can get our position. But even then, it's perhaps, it's maybe. So we're not against supporting that idea either. So basically, what we do here is that we're giving four different paragraphs. So the first one is our introduction, and the second one is, sorry, this one. The second one is our first body paragraph, our second body paragraph, and then our conclusion paragraph, basically. And we've kind of always supported the idea that machines cannot take over because they're not as good translators as humans. And this is the full version, full correct version of this essay. So, what do you think this essay will get? Yes, two body paragraphs are enough. This is just to kind of show off, to be honest. You can write three body paragraphs too, but I think two body paragraphs will be better for you because you won't have to think about another main idea for another paragraph. We have written one with three body paragraphs, but you don't have to do that. So Abby says this get like a 7.5 or 8. I think that too. I think this one gets like an 8. And it's 2000 and what? No, it's 285 words. So it exceeds the word limit too, and it's not that long. And it has like a really good, clear opinion, and it supports that throughout the essay consistently. And it uses really different vocabulary, different linking words, different grammatical structures. And it shows again that it can use different grammatical structures. I'm repeating myself, but it uses a noun clause here. It kind of compares the two because the question asks us to compare. And yeah, I think for all these reasons, this one gets like an 8. For this to be kind of like a 7, it needs to have some kind of like mistakes, but overall it needs to look the same. So for example, it needs to have these different vocabularies, these different grammatical structures, and you can make some occasional mistakes. So for example, instead of saying, for example, you can say, for example, a misspelled word there maybe. Those might get you to a 0.7, but other than that, it needs to look more or less the same, basically. Yes, Ansa, you may talk.
Yes, I want to know that is it important that if whatever topic we get, we have to be very that our essay has to be very informative, and what kind of information we should give if, for example, we don't have information about machine technology or machine translation. So, what is the criteria for the examiner to check that essay?
So basically, first of all, they don't care about any of your opinions, to put it really honestly. They don't care about anything that you have written, so the content, as long as it's relevant to the topic. I'm sorry, but they really don't care. It just needs to be relevant to the topic. That's their only criteria. So as long as it's relevant, it doesn't matter if you give information, it doesn't matter if you explain machine translation, it doesn't really matter if you support or deny this idea. Basically, the information that you're giving is not important. They don't care. What they care is that what you've written, anything you've written, is relevant. So basically, if the question asks you about machine translation and human translation and the comparison between the two, you cannot write about coffee, let's say. But as long as you're on the topic of translation, machinery, computers, humans, translators, and like different ways of saying different things, you're fine. Basically, if I've understood you correctly, the answer to a question is that they don't care. Yes, this is the harsh truth that I revealed, but I think I find this really comforting because um, when I feel like someone cares about my opinion, I kind of try to write really good and supportive things, but the truth is they don't care. So you can write whatever and you can still get a band 9 as long as it's relevant. So let me show you the criteria again. So basically, uh, to get a good uh, band score, a good score in task response, so basically what you're asking, the information, giving information, you need to address all parts of the task. So you need to talk about machines, humans, and translation, and you need to give a comparison. And these are all parts of the task. You need to talk about machines, humans, translation, and a comparison. And you need to give your position. So basically, you need to choose whether you agree or disagree that machines can do a worse job in translating than humans. And you need to give relevant examples. So, for example, as we have done in our essay, you can just say, um, where is that? So, for example, bank has different meanings, or lookout means different things. But if you cannot find any words that you think mean differently, you can just say, yeah, some words do not mean the same thing in two different languages. Or you can just say, for example, rose has a lot of meanings. So, how much information you're going to give basically depends on you. Does that answer your question? I'm sorry, I've talked too much. Yes, Ansa, go ahead.
Can you please share the link where we can get our essays checked?
Your essays checked. I don't think we have that one yet, but we're on the works of that. So I don't know if there's any link that I am not aware of yet. But if there are any links, you can find that on the Clasital webpage. All right, Abby, go ahead.
Yeah, ma'am, I just want to know that how can I improve my writing? Actually, I'm making very like big blunders. Actually, not big blunders. I'm making blunders all of the time when I'm trying to write. Like I'm very good at storytelling, like story, creating a story. But the thing that I face, like I get trouble into it. Like I am very good at also making first sentences, like first paragraph. But after that, like in the supporting thing, na, I make mistakes. So how can I improve that?
Do you mean grammatical mistakes, or do you
Yeah,
feel
ma'am.
like you
I'm
cannot
actually
find
made.
anything to
Yeah, ma'am.
write?
I'm making like more of grammatical mistake. How can I improve that?
So basically, reading something in detail actually gives you a lot of ideas, makes you learn the true versions of those grammatical structures. So, for example, if I were you, I would take this essay, like watch the YouTube video later on. I would take this essay, pause the video, and think to myself, how is this written? Like, for example, why did this person use that here? And what did this person use after that? So we said a full sentence after it, right? We gave a full sentence. So that means that that is followed by a full sentence. Or we said when it comes to interpreting. So we've used an ing instead of to, sorry, after the to. Why did we use that? Is this something that we should do? Is it an academic thing? So basically, read essays, and analyze them, kind of, and try to find the structures that you really like. For example, I think I like when it comes to so much, and I try to use that in my essay later on. And this is something that I have done in my studying while I was at university. So basically, while I was reading for my classes, reading these academic essays, I always tried to take notes of the words or grammatical structures that I liked. And then, when it was time for me to write an essay as an homework, as a final exam or a midterm, I always opened that notebook, and I tried to include those things, those words or grammatical structures that I really liked into my essay. Basically, this is, I think, really helpful. And other than that, if you feel like you know something but you still make mistakes while writing them, I would suggest you to kind of review your own essay and try to find the mistakes in your essay. And if you can find them, correct them, obviously. But if you cannot find those mistakes, but they still feel like something is wrong, I would suggest you to kind of make your essay checked. It can be to a teacher, another student, another friend. So basically, cross check your essays. And it's, I think, better when you find those mistakes, and again, take notes of those mistakes and try to not do them next time. Since you will already see those mistakes and you will review them before writing your next essay, and you will feel like as you practice, you will know that you're making less and less mistakes each day, each time you write an essay, basically.
Sure, man. So I have one last question. Like, what do you think? Like, I can improve this within 2 to 3 weeks because I want to take my test the end of like in the end of this month.
Sorry, can you repeat that? I kind of couldn't hear you.
Yeah, I said like, what do you think if I work on it for 2 to 3 weeks only, then I am good to take the test in the upcoming week on the fourth week of this month.
Mhm. You will
It will
definitely,
help me.
you will definitely get better. Everything counts. Like for example, even if you learn one or two words in this session and you take the exam tomorrow, it's still really important to not stop studying. And if you feel like there is a grammatical structure that you don't know, I would suggest you to like kind of study for it online or in your book or whatever, from whichever source. And I think you will get better, but I cannot say something like really for sure because I haven't uh, read any of your essays or anything. I don't know which level of English you have, but still, anything you do, any practice will contribute a lot to your exam, like in this month, even if it's in this month.
So then I just start with the grammar thing.
And
For
if
this
you
week, I
feel
can
like,
continue.
yeah, if
Yeah.
you feel like you don't know enough grammatical structures, so for example, those linking words, these linking words right here. If you feel like you don't know how to use any of these or most of these, I would suggest you to start with that grammatical, knowledge studying, definitely.
So,
Any other
do me a
questions?
favor. Like, do you know any like site or any YouTube channel that we can find all this video, like compilation of all these things?
Hmm.
If you have
I
any reference.
Unfortunately, I don't know, and I don't think I'm allowed to share if I knew any. But you
Okay.
can just type on Google, and I think you will come up with many results.
Sure, sure. Ma'am.
All right,
Thank you.
don't
I
worry.
can understand.
Any other questions? If not, yeah, go ahead.
I don't have question from with you, but I just want to request some of the students if they can share their experience from where they are preparing or what they are doing for IELTS.
Oh, so from your
It's
friends, you're asking?
from the people which are joining right now here.
Oh, okay. So, if anyone wants to share anything, of course, we can leave like 1 or 2 minutes to that. And while you're thinking, so basically, your friend asked you to share some of your experiences. If there's anyone who wants to answer, you can go ahead. And while you're doing that, I shared a survey link on our chat box. I would really be glad if you filled that out and kind of give feedback to us because we take those feedbacks really, really seriously. We take everything into account. So my name is Gizem. I want to remind you that because the survey will ask you who your teacher was. My name is Gizem. You can give any feedbacks both on the course and on me if there's anything that you felt like missing. Thank you, Anna, for your really sweet comment. I'm glad it helped. Um, so basically, I would be really glad if you filled out that survey. Yes, Abby, go ahead.
Yeah. Ansa, to be honest, I just started like my preparation on last month actually. One of my friend, she got an unconditional offer letter from same university, and I got the conditional one, and that's why I have to prepare for IELTS. So she's helping me a lot, like on my writing parts as well as that I already shared that I'm making mistakes like grammatical mistakes a lot. So she just pointed me and for all those stuff like listening, reading, and speaking part, I'm like taking help for those things also with her only. But the writing, and like I must say, if you want, you can. I personally think that this classical site is really doing well because this is my third session with them. But I really feel it's really improved a lot for me. On the like we say, at the end of the day, we are learning a lot of things from all those tutors. So you must like join regularly, and for any other things you can join some other telegram channels where you can use some grammar tasks like grammar quizzes, and for writing you can get some like templates, all those stuff.
I wouldn't suggest templates, by the way. I know some of the
Okay.
sites do. Uh, if you're caught
uh,
with a template, because the examiners sometimes can get the same template and then they know that it's a template and it's memorized. So I would suggest you not to do that because if they realize that it's a template, you get a zero. You you're so you won't be good with a template if you're unlucky.
so
Thank you.
sorry to cutting you, ma'am. Actually, I didn't mean that like template in, I mean like sample essays. I must say
Sample us.
sample essay rather than, yeah,
Sorry.
templates,
Yeah.
because sometimes they are denoting like templates of this essay for this task and this task. So
Mm,
I have to say like sample essay. You
mm,
can cross check, and like the ma'ams already said, like
yeah.
you have to cross check, or you have to like check the thing that why that used in this all sentence for your grammar things. You can check it all. So I must say, like I totally agree with ma'am. You can like go along with classical as well and do practice more than looking here and there.
Yeah.
I must say
Definitely.
this.
Practice is really, really important. And so for idioms, you can join our speaking sessions too, because we also have that part, like an idioms part separate. Uh, in our speaking sessions where we learn about a lot of different idioms and how to use them in sentences. I think you can check that for that. And also in writing part, I think uh, you will be able to use the idioms if you're really lucky. So instead of like thinking of those idioms, the different idioms, I would learn about one or two and focus on different academic vocabulary and grammatical structures more. And what should I search for this record? And then you can just type our name like Clasital on YouTube, you will be fine. I'm making notes from sample essays as well in these classes. Yes, I think making notes are really important. So to reach this session on YouTube, you can just write Clasital. You will get our web page, and then you can find the videos with dates. So I want to send the survey link again for those of you who haven't still filled that. I would be really glad if you filled that up. And other than that, I'm glad that you've joined us today. Hope you've learned something that will help you with your exam. And hope to see you all in our other sessions, our reading, writing, listening, introduction to IELTS and speaking courses. I would be really happy to see you again. And I'm being happy seeing you here, like the same people. I hope to see you all again. Have a nice day. Bye. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your good wishes. And thank you so much for filling out